let's talk about the council elections. And let's be honest, the United Kingdom has shown us that it is an inherently racist nation. Basically, swinging it. So, Reform have 677 councillors. The Lib Dems made good gains as well, which is nice. The Tories basically got decimated. Labour did poorly as well. And the Greens actually, a nice little pickup for them in terms of councillors. Reform winning so many votes, in my opinion, is because the United Kingdom is a thoroughly racist nation. If you look at the interviews with people who voted for Reform, they said it's for immigration. And I'll be honest, it's racism, and I think it's people don't understand how elections work. And I think that's by design. People don't really learn politics in school. I think you'll have to be privileged, like myself, to have been able to have learnt politics in school. And thus, people don't realise these local elections, these councillors who they voted to sort out immigration. And let's be honest, Reform did run on a immigration-focused campaign as well for the local elections. Your local councillor does not do anything about immigration. They have like a 0.01% chance to do anything with immigration. That is down to the Home Office. That is your MP's job, not your local councillor's job. Your local councillor's job is to make sure your potholes are fixed, is to make sure your council tax is spent wisely, is to make sure that the kids have somewhere to go play in the park and the parks are safe. Those are the things your councillor needs to be interested in. Those are very important things. Your local community should be extremely important to you. Making sure the people you vote for in your local community have your community's interest at heart is very important. Reform did not run on any of that stuff. All of these Reform councils are going to get even worse than what the current councils are like. Because we have many councils going bust because of Tory just policy. And Reform have even worse policies than the Tories. Can you imagine these Reform councillors who got voted in because they said, I'm going to stop the boats in, like, I don't know, Runcorn or something. Obviously, Runcorn was the mayoral election. That's another thing. But people are so caught up with being racist, with being bigoted, that they would vote for Reform against their best interests. Now, is this completely because Reform and racism? Well, yes, but also Labour's ineptitude at a national level, because we do know, because people aren't taught what local elections are for, it is a reflection of the national feeling. And Labour have been so poor over the last basically year since they've been in power. They promised just a terrible bunch of promises, like no raising taxes, which didn't make sense. Basically, more neoliberal policies. They said we're going to protect poor people, we're going to protect the elderly, we're going to protect the disabled, we're going to protect minority groups, particularly trans people, LGBTQ plus community, and they've gone against all of it. They are trying to privatize the NHS more. They are trying to use AI in the NHS. They're making deals with Palantir. They're continuing to arm Israel. They are dehumanizing disabled people with their policies. They refuse to get rid of the 2-child benefit cap. The winter fuel payments being cut as well. All of these things are the opposite of what a Labour Party is supposed to represent. And Labour thought, listen, we were running on this campaign of we're not the Tories, and people are going to vote for us because we're not the Tories. And what they should have realised is people voted for them simply because they didn't want to vote Tory. It's a reason why they got fewer votes than they did under Corbyn. They won because people didn't want to vote Tory. So actually the people who were Tory voters voted for Reform, and people who were like in the middle voted Labour. Now, Labour lost a lot of goodwill with people in the middle, which is why the Lib Dems made gains. the Greens made gains, and Reform made gains. The Conservatives clearly have lost their stranglehold over much of the right wing, and the right wing has got even more right to reform. The Conservatives aren't helping that at the moment, because the Conservatives are pushing their rhetoric to be more right-wing as well, and it's the same thing I see in the United States, where the Conservatives are trying to be more right-wing, but you already have a party that is further right-wing than you, so why would people vote for you when they can go further right to reform? Just like in the United States, the Democrats under Harris at the election were trying to go more right-wing to capture the voters who are Republicans. But why would a Republican vote for a Democrat who is less right-wing than as right-wing as you want it to be? It's like the Conservatives are now Reform light. The Democrats are Republicans light. And that's why the Lib Dems got big gains, because the Lib Dems are more centre than the Conservatives. And so they captured those Conservatives who were never going to vote Reform, but they weren't going to vote Labour, so they vote Lib Dem. That's basically been Lib Dem's entire history. But then also Labour lost people to the Lib Dems and the Greens, because Labour were like, oh, we're going to be more of a neoliberal party. And the Lib Dems have always been this like, oh, well, we're the third alternative, guys. And the Greens are the actual left-wing party, so people went to the Greens and the Lib Dems. Also, Labour probably lost seats to Reform because it's the case that they have disenfranchised the working class so much that working class people have decided, well, I guess Reform are my best shout, because Reform are saying things. And the best way to beat Reform is to actually explain why their policies suck, explain why their policies make no sense. But Labour don't do that. The Conservatives don't do that. They're just like, well, don't you guys just want to vote for us because we're the big parties? When you can, why don't you do a breakdown bit by bit, almost like US attack ads? And I know we're starting to see those. I saw a couple from the Conservatives against Labour, actually, in the run into this election. But do those sort of attack ads. Like, take out paper ads and go through the Reform Manifesto and explain why this doesn't make sense. If you look at Runcorn here, the Runcorn by-election where Reform... No, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm getting my things confused. Where Runcorn won by 6 votes, I believe. It being so close is a reflection on how poorly Labour have done, how poorly the Conservatives have done, and just their failure to actually explain why Reform's messaging sucks. And the reason they're not doing it is because both of these parties are right-wing. Labour and Conservative, as they stand at the moment, actually agree with things Reform want. They want to promote this racism in the United Kingdom, and thus they won't criticise Reform too heavily, because they want to appeal to that racism. They want that racism to grow, and they want to use that at the next election. The Conservatives openly said they want a culture war at the last election. And frankly, the only reason Labour won was because Liz Truss destroyed our economy. If they had called for an election before choosing Truss, I'll be honest, I think the Conservatives probably would have won the election at that point, because people are just... This country is so racist. It's the racism, the lack of political education, which is deliberate, and just the big parties believing they are too big to fail. They believe they've been around for so long they won't fail, and they're going to if they don't innovate, if they don't change. Labour changed, and they changed for the worse. Had they stuck with Jeremy Corbyn or someone who was a Corbynite, they would have had so much goodwill. They would have had so many people backing them. If they decided to work with the Greens, they would have people backing them. If they chose to be a legitimately left-wing party, pushing left-wing ideas, going to the working class and trying to actually help them, they would be in such a good place right now. No one would have flipped to Reform from Labour. People wouldn't have voted Lib Dem. They would have voted Labour. People who voted Green would have gone to Labour. If we're thinking about the last national election, Labour won well. They should have obliterated the Conservatives. They should have obliterated Reform. That's what the polling was telling us at the beginning of last year. But Labour chose to be a neoliberal centre-right party, and this is the result of that. The council elections of people deciding, well, all of these parties are telling me my problem is immigration, but Reform are the only ones telling me that they're going to kill all the immigrants coming, so I'll vote for Reform. Genuinely. And as someone who, I'm not even an immigrant, I am British, born and bred, as someone who they will demonize because of my color of my skin, why would I not want to leave this country? Genuinely, the main reason I won't leave the UK is because I am a hater, and because my mere presence hurts Reform voters. Like, it physically and mentally upsets them, and that is the only reason I would stay in the UK, because I know my presence physically and mentally upsets these people. Like, imagine only living in a country out of spite, because this country clearly doesn't want me here. This country clearly wants to go back to, just ethno-nationalism, racism, just bigotry. And this council elections prove that. Is the UK beyond saving? No. You just need the major parties, or you just need Labour to actually, do something to materially benefit the working class, and to actually explain that the real enemy here is, these major corporations, is the capitalists, is capitalism, and all of these racist ideologies are because of capitalism, are because of the far right, because of fascism, and how, yes, people of colour have different issues, will need additional support because of the racism generated by capitalism. You need to think intersectionally that just simply saying, oh, we're just going to, fix all of the jobs problems and we're just going to give you the housing and stuff, yeah, that will help. But because all of these parties have pushed racist narratives for so long, they need to genuinely help people unlearn that racism, whilst also supporting minorities, whilst also supporting the working class as a whole, whilst also getting rid of far-right capitalist propaganda in this country. But they won't do it because we have a right-wing Labour Party who individuals materially benefit from supporting that racism, from being capitalists. And it's, like I said, I'll stick around because it upsets the Reform voters, because it upsets the Conservatives, it upsets the right wing. My mere presence upsets them. And it's just like, these people are so small that my existence hurts their feelings.